know we've had this conversation a lot of times with bringing folks into the team, where we've tried to draw the distinction between being an artist and an artisan.
Yeah.
So we always want people that are artists, but it's more important to be successful in the organization at being an artisan. And we always talk about artisan as just being obsessed with the craft. So really loving the challenge of having to jump in and do something new, to engage, to be in the process. It's like a workout. It's always going to be hard. It's always going to be hard. People that do yoga for 10 years, they get into a yoga session, they're like, oh, this is awful. But it's the process that you're committing to. You know, I don't know if you've heard the phrase when folks say, inspiration is for amateurs, the rest of us just show up and get to work.
Yeah.
It feels like that's what you're describing, nurturing that idea. Did you have that transition in your career from the artist to artisan? And
yeah.
What happened?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's an intense question, right? Because it talks a lot about the ego. It talks a lot about how you wake up in the morning and approach your day and motivate yourself. And but yeah, we hired together, so it's kind of interesting being the one who's answering the question, given that we're figuring this stuff out together. But I think one thing that we figured out a long time ago is that we don't want to work every single day frustrated. Frustration sucks. No one likes frustration. And one of the main sources of frustration in an artistic realm, in a creative realm, such as photography and videography, is when you're not on the same page as your client. When your client wants something and you want something, and you're doing something different, that causes a lot of frustration to both parties. So, as we're moving on in our careers, first, before we started Gigsy and now inside of Gigsy, I think one thing became very clear, which is you can either fight your client because you have a specific vision that you want to show the world, or you are going to try to understand as much as you possibly can what your client wants, execute that, and of course, there's always going to be gaps, and that's where you're going to insert your creativity. So I think that's the formula we figured out. So
where'd you learn that?
Trial and error.
Was there a project that you had in your personal career or a moment that's striking, or it's just?
I think it was more of an organic kind of fluid thing, whereas as a freelancer, I was just trying so hard to give the Ollie style to things. So, like you were saying, I'm a documentary filmmaker originally. I love the handheld look. I had a more raw feel, etc., etc. There were a ton of elements, visual elements, audio elements, how it was. I like my edits to be long. I'm not, I wasn't looking for anything succinct. So many different elements, and I was realizing that resonated with a bunch of my clients. That also didn't resonate with a bunch of other clients. I just didn't like the frustration, so it kind of organically, I'm someone, if someone criticizes me, obviously like every human, I'm going to be defensive, at least inside of me, but then my immediate instinct is like, let me figure out what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong, and so I can change. And so when I saw myself and my clients sometimes being frustrated, I'm like, I have to figure out why, because I'm putting so much work, and what's the whole point of this? I'm being commissioned by a client. And then it goes back to motivation. Why am I even doing this? I'm doing this because I love to have a camera in my hand. I love to produce a creative type of work. And then there's this stigma that commercial work is not creative, which is total BS. It's not true at all.
I hear that all the time.
I find commercial work more challenging and thus more creative than just an art project. Because an art project is just free. You just gotta. So yeah, you can just flow. But in a commercial project, you got restraints, and those restraints force you into being way more focused in your creativity. I think it's a huge challenge. So I don't remember of any specific project that did that change in mindset, but what I do know is that nowadays at Gigsy we take this extremely seriously. And it's all about mentality.
Yeah.
It's all about how you view yourself. We put for us, after all this realization, we decided to be client-centered. We decided to put the client in first place. And so the briefing always is in our team, in pre-production, we have to figure out, we have to ask the right questions, and we have to figure out how to extract from the client's entire vision and needs and wants and desires. And what you end up realizing is that, a lot of clients will just say like, no, you're the professional, you're the creative, you just go do your work. What they don't realize is most of the time they have a very clear vision in their minds. They just didn't know how to express it. So I think that for us has been a beautiful challenge, a fun challenge to figure out what are the right questions to ask, how to then put that into what we call a treatment, right? To condense that so that whoever is going to shoot this and whoever is going to edit this, everyone's speaking the same language. Someone who has too much of an artist mentality will not necessarily do that. Their motivation is not necessarily to understand from the client first what they want,
sure,
and then create a plan, execute the plan, and insert creativity throughout.
Sure. It's treated as an all creative enterprise instead of in service to somebody else's story where you're helping map it and frame the conversation.
Exactly. And so I just find it all fascinating, especially how your questions, how you're conducting the questions, because one thing just connects to the other, right? What we're doing at Gigsy connects 100% to why we are so thorough in our hiring process to make sure that we're hiring people that have the right motivation. We love the craft of photography. We love the craft of videography. And because we love the craft, we want to have opportunities to produce. Because the only way to do that is if someone's paying you, a client's paying you. So we need to make sure that clients are coming back, especially the clients that we brought into the house already, that they're coming back. So we have to make them happy. We have to, if you're being commissioned to do something, at the end of that cycle, you want to make sure that whoever commissioned you has a huge smile on their face, is super satisfied, so that they're coming back. That's the only way that Gigsy is sustainable.
It's almost like a restaurant in a way.
Totally.